I think it's fairly accurate to say if you look around college football that the offensive coordinator, that is typically their sole position. And if there's an addendum to that, then they are the quarterback's coach. They're
Right.
obviously closely
Right.
tied to the quarterback. Where on the defensive side, there's usually some type of safeties position that's involved there, or a smaller group of players that go along with the title of defensive coordinator. Does Phil Parker, does he have a group
Yeah,
that
he's the
he
DB's guy.
oversees?
He's the whole DB's guy.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a pretty big group, though. That's
Yeah.
safeties and corners.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that assignment also kind of trickles down to cash because that's kind of a hybrid linebacker type of position that you usually use a DB for.
Do you happen to know what Phil Parker makes per year?
I think he's like 1.1 or 1.2 now.
Did you hear what Jim Knowles got from Penn State?
I did. What was it? It was.
So Jim Knowles was making 2.75 million at Ohio State. I believe he was the highest paid coordinator in the country.
That's
And
nuts.
it was 3 million with his bonuses once those kicked in for the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. 3 million. Penn State gave him a 3-year deal for 9.3 million. He's making 3.1 base salary at Penn State.
Why are they willing to pay him that? Is he that good that they need to pay him 3 point some million a year?
I had the Penn State guy on from Rivals last night. I made a similar question in a different way. I said, who are the last several defensive coordinators? Well, they are Tom Allen, Manny Diaz, Brent Pry, who all have head coaching experience at the Power Five level and have extraordinary defensive backgrounds. I said, why are they willing to pay this guy that much money? Is he that good? I don't necessarily see it. I know that Ohio State's loaded from a talent standpoint on defense, and he did a nice job at Oklahoma State. It took him some time to get to that point, but I just think is yeah, I just think it's a bit extreme.
Chev Yoda says that Phil got bumped to 1.9 million last year, so I don't doubt that. And I don't even know what Tim Lester's making.
Just to make another comparison there within the conference, Indiana just gave its defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes, I believe is his name, a bump to 1.8 million. And he doesn't have anywhere close to the
Acumen.
experience or the success track
Yeah.
record of Phil Parker. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much Phil Parker's invested in, his own portfolio and so forth, that he would want to go in and say,
Yeah. I don't think Phil. I don't know. I don't think Phil cares. At this point, like Phil could have made so much more taking a head coaching job somewhere else, and I have no doubt he's had opportunities. I mean, right? Isn't it fair to say, Mark, he's probably had Power Four schools that would have hired him as an offense as a head coach by now.
well, what you're bringing up, I think, could be related or maybe not necessarily related. That somebody could say, I am just a coordinator. I don't want to run a football program. I just want to
Yeah,
coach and coordinate the
yeah,
defense versus a money aspect, and just flat out saying, I'm well paid, I'm good, I'm in the top 10, whatever, that's fine. I'm well taken care of. Or, hey, I want to be paid the best. Eh,
yeah. I
That
I could I'm not 60 some years old like Phil Parker is, but at the same time, I think about his decision to stay as a coordinator and not pursue head coaching opportunities, and I'm like, it makes sense. I 1 point whatever he's making, if it's 1.9, 1.9, I mean, unless you're living some lavish lifestyle, what and I doubt I'm pretty sure Phil Parker's not. He probably still has his occasional trip to Arby's. My guess is he is more than satisfied with what he's doing. He's probably, I mean, obviously he loves coaching defensive backs. And the other thing, Mark, is is you agree to a deal. I don't know how long of a deal it is for some schools, but the stress that comes with a 4 to 5 year deal as a head coach, you may have that guaranteed for 4 to 5 years, but then you get fired, and now you're all of a sudden trying to put your foot back in the door at a lesser place that you're not as comfortable at. It makes sense why he wouldn't want head coaching opportunities. Part of me also thinks that a guy like Phil would like an opportunity somewhere before his career is ending, but I don't know that some people are wired that way, and that's to Iowa's advantage. I do think, not to go on a tangent here, but I do think that LeVar Woods is wired to be a head coach. I think he wants to be a head coach someday. And I think Seth Wallace, same thing. I mean, he's got, I think he's got promotions within Iowa that hopefully he'll achieve, especially when Phil moves on. Hopefully Iowa can keep him. But there are some people that you detect that, and it doesn't make any one person less or more of a coach, but some people are just wired differently.
And those two guys might have strong enough resumes to get a Power Five head coaching position right out of the gate.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see what I don't know about LeVar. LeVar's been like that special teams unit has been so good. Um, but like Cheviota brings up in the chat, he's making Seth Wallace is making more than LeVar Woods. I is that fair? I don't know. I think that was based on what I was told. That was Iowa bumped Wallace up to $1 million a year and gave him that assistant to the head coach role, basically to stave off the uh, people that were trying to get him to go somewhere else to be a coordinator. My understanding is Minnesota wanted him as a defensive coordinator here, what, a year or two, whenever they were looking for a change there. And I'm sure that had to kind of irritate LeVar Woods, who's been the special teams coordinator for a number of years, has been dominant, has been elite across the board. So that had to probably annoy him. Remember, didn't he interview for that Tampa Bay Bucks job like right after they announced Wallace was taking that promotion? And so he didn't take the job, and now Mason Woods is going to be a Hawkeye this coming year. So I'll be interested to see what the future holds for LeVar as well. But yeah, back to the coordinator thing. That was the problem. This is the catch-22 we had with Brian Ferentz. He's a former O-line guy who's never coordinated an offense before Iowa, had never called plays. He's not a natural play caller because he's not a quarterback. And, he's a former offensive lineman who's coached tight ends. So you have him as the offensive coordinator plus the tight ends coach at one time. And then all of a sudden you're going to move him to quarterbacks coach. So now you have a non-tight ends guy coaching tight ends. You have a non-quarterbacks guy coaching quarterbacks, and you have a wide receiver coach that had failed to that point. And that's how you become the worst offense in college football. And now I think those things have been sorted out to an extent. You still have Abdul Hodge coaching tight ends. Honestly, tight end involvement really took a step back this year for Iowa's offense. I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. If that's just this new offense. I thought they'd be more involved. I thought from a performance standpoint, we saw much less from Luke Lachey than I would have anticipated. And I don't know where he's projected to be drafted here in a couple of months. I have no idea. I would think he's going to be drafted. I can't imagine he wouldn't, but his numbers were very pedestrian. And so they got a really good room coming back, but I have no idea what involvement's going to look like. Because I would think as Lester continues to get receivers, I would only think it becomes more of a receiver centric offense. You would have thought if they were going to involve the tight ends, it would have been during this transition year where you had better talent at tight end, but they still cut down on wide receiver or tight end involvement. And so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.